you ever get that sinking feeling? The one where you know the next few seconds are about to ruin your day? That was me when I saw the notification. Rashawn Slater carted off the field at training camp. A couple hours later, the confirmation dropped like a hammer. Torn patellar tendon, out for the season. Just like that, in the middle of August, the Chargers lost one of their absolute best players. The entire trajectory of the 2025 season shifted. I'm going to walk you through why this injury is devastating, not just for the team, but for Slater personally, how it reshapes the offensive line, the offense, and the season, what realistic options exist for the Chargers now, and what this means for the long term. Because this isn't just next man up. This is losing a foundational piece of the franchise, one of the few players who can genuinely tilt games in your favor. What's up, Chargers fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Chargers. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Bolts. Let's start with the obvious. Rashawn Slater is not replaceable. He's an elite left tackle, arguably the best player on this roster outside of Justin Herbert, and he's coming off becoming the highest-paid offensive tackle in the league just days ago, and now, done for the year. And the injury itself makes this sting even more. A torn patellar tendon is one of the toughest recoveries in football. We talk about ACLs like they're major, and they are, but nowadays, players return from ACLs and MCLs at around an 80% return-to-form rate. For patellar tendons, it's more like 50%. It's the kind of injury that robs explosiveness, power, and leverage, the exact traits an offensive tackle needs to survive against guys like Max Crosby, Chris Jones, and Micah Parsons. There are many examples burned into my mind. Victor Cruz came back from it, but he was never again the salsa-dancing, big-play receiver fans loved. Jared Mayo returned, but he couldn't hit that same peak. And for older players like J.C. Jackson, who tore his patellar tendon as a cornerback, it was essentially the end of his top-tier career. Now, Slater has youth on his side. That matters. We've seen younger players like Josh Simmons recover well enough to start in the NFL after tearing theirs at Ohio State. But make no mistake, this is a brutal rehab. And this isn't Slater's first major injury. He's played through a torn tricep, 2 high ankle sprains, and a pec injury. This isn't a one-off. It's an accumulation. He's 26, but his body has already been through a lot. Okay, now, the main question is, does this end the Chargers season? Obviously a no. Team success doesn't depend on a single player, but it absolutely changes their ceiling. With Slater, this team had a chance to be a legitimate contender in the AFC, to push for the 5 seed and maybe more. Without him, now suddenly the margin for error in those coin flip games vanish. Without Slater, you're no longer setting up for at-home playoff matchups. That could have meant visiting Houston in the wildcard round and possibly facing teams like Baltimore, Buffalo, or Kansas City afterward, depending on seeding. And then there's the identity shift. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman wanted a balanced physical offense. Slater and Zion Johnson anchoring one side, McKee Becton and Joe Alt on the other, paving the way for a dominant run game. Now Alt moves to left tackle, and the right side looks a lot like last year's. Inconsistent in run blocking and leaky in pass protection. Now, if you want to throw deep to Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris, sure, but you're risking Herbert taking more hits. Want to keep the short game humming? You might not be able to spread the field the same way because you'll need extra blockers instead of extra targets, like Aronde Godston. And let's not forget, the interior offensive line was already the roster's biggest weakness. Losing a dominant tackle just puts more stress on the inside where teams like the Giants, and yes, I'm looking at Dexter Lawrence, can wreck a game from the middle. So what's the lineup now? Harbaugh's been very clear, and this isn't guesswork or speculation. The Chargers will put Joe Alt at left tackle. Zion Johnson will play left guard. Bradley Bozeman is your center. McKee Becton goes to right guard, and Trey Pipkins will hold down right tackle. Jamari Sawyer will remain at guard and will only move to tackle in an emergency. And I know some fans don't love that idea. Trey Pipkins takes a lot of criticism, but the reality? He's been a serviceable, even average tackle in the past. Back in 2022, he graded better in pass protection than Salyer and was trusted to handle one-on-one assignments more often. His stint at guard last season? Bad. But that was never his natural position. At tackle, with help from tight ends and running backs on chip blocks, he can hold up well enough to keep the offense functional. Not elite, but functional. And right now, that's what the Chargers need. And here's the part that really scares me. Depth. McKee Becton hasn't practiced for over a week with what Harbaugh calls a minor issue. They're clearly managing him given his injury history. Bozeman is getting veteran rest days. Branson Taylor left practice with a trainer. That leaves Corey Stewart and Ryan Nelson as the next tackles up in camp. And I'm sorry, but that's not an NFL-ready depth chart. One more injury, and we're in serious trouble. Let's be realistic. You're not replacing Rashawn Slater in August. Quality starting tackles almost never get traded. What you can do is replace Pipkin's old role. Find a swing tackle who can step in at either spot if needed. If you're looking at trade possibilities, one name that makes sense is Evan Neal from the Giants. He fits the Chargers' size and pedigree preferences, and there's a connection to offensive line coach Andy Bischoff. There's Braxton Jones from the Bears, Rasheed Walker from the Packers, Kendall Lamb from the Eagles, and Titus Howard from the Texans. But here's the problem. Most of those guys are starters for their current teams. You'd have to give up a lot, and there's no guarantee they're even available. Free agency has a couple of names worth watching. The most logical fit is George Fant. He's got over 2,000 career snaps at both tackle spots and a connection to Chargers executive Chad Alexander. Then there's Jedrick Wills, a former first-rounder with talent, but he's dealing with injury and conditioning issues and might not be ready to play until later in the season. Beyond that, you're looking at depth flyers like Wanya Morris, Andrew Wiley, Foster Sorrell, Lucas Niang, who, by the way, also returned from a patellar tendon tear, Tyre Phillips, and Raven Clark. And we have another practical option, although it's risky, but we can wait for preseason cuts. Washington, for example, has an unusually deep tackle group and might let a capable veteran go. Now, what is left for Slater? The recovery timeline for a torn patellar tendon is usually 5 to 9 months. That means Slater could be physically cleared by training camp next year. But clearance doesn't mean dominance. Will he still be that same Pro Bowl level tackle? This could turn into a story like Keenan Allen, who had injury problems early but then stayed healthy for years. Or it could go the way of Jason Verrett or Joey Bosa, where injuries keep a player from ever putting together multiple full seasons in a row. And that's the part that hurts as a fan. The Chargers have a long list of what could have been players. Verrett, Mike Williams, Trevor Williams, Corey Linsley, Bosa, all incredibly talented, all hampered by injuries. Slater had the potential for a Lane Johnson-type career. That kind of ceiling doesn't come around often, and now it's in jeopardy. So where does this leave 2025? The Chargers can still win 10 games. Herbert is still Herbert. Alt is a gifted young tackle. The coaching staff, Harbaugh, Greg Roman, Jesse Minter, can scheme around the loss with quick passing, heavier formations, and game plans designed to slow down elite pass rushers early in the year. But the margin for error is razor thin now. The road to a playoff win just got steeper. And for Rashawn Slater, the journey now becomes about conquering one of football's most difficult rehabs and proving he can return to elite form. For the fans, I get it. The vibes are low. Another key player lost before the season even started. My advice? Tonight, step away from depth charts. Order your comfort food of choice, let the team figure out the puzzle, and when Week 1 kicks off, we'll see what this Chargers group is made of. The season isn't over, but it has changed. And for Rashawn Slater, the comeback starts now.